My name is Lucas, a 28-year-old guy from Sweden. After years of living within the confines of Western order and convenience, I decided to spend 3 months roaming across Southeast Asia, hoping to rediscover something within myself, something I couldn't quite name, but which I felt slipping away bit by bit. I chose Vietnam as my first stop, not because it stood out more than other countries, but because of the images I'd seen. Crowds on motorbikes, vibrant street food vendors, little plastic chairs glowing under warm yellow lights. All of it seemed like a beautiful kind of chaos, an organized mess that deeply intrigued me. The plane touched down at Tan Son Nhut Airport on a sweltering afternoon. As the doors opened, a wave of heat slammed into my face, along with the scent of gasoline, street food, and something else I couldn't quite identify, a unique fragrance of this tropical city. Dragging my suitcase through immigration and out the doors, I was immediately surrounded by dozens of drivers shouting, "Taxi! Where you go, my friend?" I froze, overwhelmed. I pulled out my phone to call a car, but the signal was weak. For a moment, I felt so small, like a single leaf adrift in a vast sea of strangers. I stepped into a small cafe nearby to catch my breath. A young woman greeted me with a soft smile and handed me a menu, entirely in Vietnamese. I gave a sheepish grin and pointed to the photo of a black coffee. When the cup arrived, I took a sip, and nearly choked from the bitterness. But then, a delicate sweetness lingered at the back of my tongue. Curious, I took another sip, slower this time. I realized I liked it. There was something oddly comforting in its unfamiliarity. Much like this trip. That evening, I booked a grab ride to Bui Vien Street, famous among backpackers. The stream of motorbikes on the way left me stunned. Thousands of scooters weaving past each other at insane speeds, honking non-stop. No one seemed to follow rules, and yet no one crashed. It was like a chaotic ballet, a dance on wheels performed with uncanny precision. When I tried to cross the road, I stood frozen at the zebra crossing. The flow of bikes never stopped. A local girl gave me a smile, then confidently stepped onto the street. I took a deep breath and followed her. Motorbikes brushed past me on both sides, mere centimeters away. My heart pounded, but I made it. I laughed, a nervous, liberated laugh. Maybe to understand Vietnam, you have to let go of every rule you've ever learned. The next morning, I was awoken by voices calling out, "Bon mi day! Doi Nong Kong!" I wandered into a small alley and found a food stall I'd seen online. Bun Bua Hu Ko Sao. I ordered a bowl, not knowing what to expect. The aroma was rich and inviting. The broth was spicy and savory, the meat tender, the herbs fresh. I was instantly enchanted. Next to me sat a middle-aged man who, with hesitant English, asked where I was from, if I'd tried pho, or been to Dalat yet. We chatted for nearly half an hour. I was struck by how open and warm Vietnamese people were. Back home, people were distant, always keeping to themselves. Here, closeness seemed natural, like breathing. In the following days, I explored Saigon like a local, eating broken rice on the sidewalk, sitting cross-legged on plastic stools near Notre Dame Cathedral, haggling at Ben Ton Market with Google Translate, and even being invited to share a family lunch by complete strangers who thought I looked friendly and a bit clueless. One rainy afternoon, I was sheltering under a storefront awning when a vendor lady handed me a stool, poured me a glass of iced tea and said, "Sit down, son, Saigon rain never lasts long." Her simple kindness moved me in a way I couldn't describe. It was the kind of quiet humanity that doesn't announce itself. It just appears and touches your heart when you least expect it. I had been in Vietnam for 10 days. And every morning I woke up, I felt an eagerness I hadn't felt in years, a childlike excitement for the unknown. I'd learned how to cross the street without flinching, how to eat dishes whose names I couldn't pronounce, and how to smile and nod when I didn't know the words. I still didn't know exactly what I was looking for, but I was certain I was on the right path. Vietnam had opened up a different world to me, not just through my eyes but through my heart. It wasn't a place of luxury or predictability, but a place where I was learning to listen again, to the world and to myself. This journey had begun with a bitter cup of coffee that turned unexpectedly sweet, just like this mysterious, chaotic, deeply human country shaped like the letter S. After 10 days in Saigon, I decided to leave the city. I had grown fond of its vibrancy and sleepless energy, but deep inside, I yearned for something different. Tranquility, nature, and perhaps a conversation with myself. I purchased a sleeper bus ticket to Dalat. The bus departed at 10 p.m. I curled up under a blanket, listening to the tires gliding over the road and soft bolero songs playing from the speakers. Outside the window, darkness passed by like a slow-motion film. Quiet roadside stalls and solitary yellow lights amidst the mountains. When I awoke in the early morning, the bus had arrived in the city of mist. Cold air seeped through the window cracks. I pulled my jacket closer, shivering slightly, but my heart was filled with excitement. Dalat reminded me of my hometown. Gentle slopes, small houses nestled among pine forests, and vibrant flower stalls. I rented a motorbike, without GPS or itinerary, letting myself drift along foggy roads. One morning I stopped by a small eatery near Xianhong Lake. The owner, a woman in her 60s, asked if I wanted to try bon can. I nodded. Sitting on a low plastic stool, steam rose from the plate, blending with the aroma of fried shallots and fish sauce. She shared stories about her 2 grandchildren studying in Saigon and her late husband who was once a firefighter. Her voice was as warm as a wool scarf on a chilly morning. I didn't understand every word, but the emotions were clear. In Dalat, everything moved slower. People seemed more connected. I spent 3 days wandering through red dirt roads, hidden cafes in the woods, and strawberry gardens where I could pick and eat on the spot. Each time I stood atop a hill looking down at the valley, I felt a peace I'd never known before. From Dalat, I continued to Hoi An by bus. The journey was long but worth every minute. Stepping into the ancient town for the first time, I felt like I was entering an oil painting from the Indochina era. Pale yellow houses with moss-covered tiled roofs, red lanterns swaying in the evening breeze. The Hoi River gently meandered through the town like a soft melody. I rented a bicycle, exploring the narrow, old brick-paved streets. One day, I stopped at a traditional tailor shop and met a girl named Nok. She had a voice as gentle as the wind and a smile that made me forget to bargain. I ordered a white linen shirt, just to have a reason to return the next day. That evening, I walked along the riverbank. Hundreds of floating lanterns drifted, reflecting shimmering lights on the water. Perhaps this was the first time I truly saw time slow down, not because of anything grand, but due to the simple, almost surreal beauty. I began writing a journal every night. not just to remember but to understand how I was changing. The initial entries were hesitant, but gradually, words flowed like a stream finding its course. Just 30 kilometers from Hoi An, Da Nang was a different world. More modern, more vibrant, yet still retaining its gentle charm. The city lay between the sea and mountains, allowing me to watch the sunrise over my key beach each morning and ride up to Sun Tra Peninsula to witness the sunset at Lin Ung Pagoda in the evening. I stayed at a homestay near the beach. The hostess, Mrs. Tuet, was a former literature teacher. We often chatted during breakfast. She shared stories about the war, the subsidy period, and the first time she saw a Western airplane land at Da Nang Airport. Her eyes lit up with each tale, as if the memories had never faded. One rainy afternoon, I visited Lin Ung Pagoda. The wind was strong and raindrops stung my face. But standing beneath the towering statue of the Goddess of Mercy, I felt as light as a cloud. I stood there for a long time, not praying for anything, just being fully present in the moment. It wasn't the famous landmarks but the small moments that stayed with me. A boy offering me a steamed bun when he saw me hesitating at a stall. An elderly man in Hoi and sharing stories about learning French during the war. A time when my motorbike broke down on Hai Van Pass, and a truck driver stopped to help without expecting anything in return. These things aren't mentioned in travel guides, but they form the soul of this journey. As I left Da Nang to continue my journey northward, I looked at myself in the mirror. Sun-kissed skin, dark circles from long nights of conversations and journaling, messy hair from wearing a helmet. But more importantly, a different feeling inside. I felt more authentic, lighter, and seemed to understand myself better each day. I was no longer just a backpacker chasing check-in spots. I paused more, listened more intently, and gradually realized Vietnam isn't just a place to pass through. It's a place to feel, to touch, and to be transformed. The train from Da Nang rolled through the night, taking me closer to the north, a land I had often heard described as ancient, cooler in climate, and home to terraced rice fields climbing the mountainsides. As dawn broke, red-tiled roofs and fields along the tracks emerged in soft gray light. I knew I was entering a very different part of the country. I arrived in Hanoi on an autumn morning, the cool air making me wrap a light scarf around my neck. Unlike Saigon or Da Nang, Hanoi had a more measured pace, yet it was no less vibrant, like a symphony of tradition and modernity. I stayed in a small homestay in the old quarter. Narrow alleys, yellow walls weathered by time, and street vendors calling out in the night gave me a strange sense of intimacy. On my first morning, I sat on a sidewalk stool, eating bun cha and sipping iced tea. The elderly man running the stall smiled warmly and joked that I could handle spicy food better than some Hanoians. One day, I sat beside Hon Kim Lake, listening to the mixture of traffic and the wind rustling through trees. An old woman sat near me, sharing stories of her youth, how she used to come here every evening with her husband, just to sit and look at the water. I couldn't understand everything, but her eyes lit up as she recalled those memories. Smiled. Perhaps we're all just searching for a place to return to, even if only in our minds. Leaving Hanoi, I took a local bus to Ninh Binh. The landscape took my breath away. Towering limestone mountains winding beside jade-colored rivers. I rented a bicycle and began exploring at the slowest pace possible. In Tam Coc, I boarded a small rowboat paddled by a local woman who steered using only her feet. I couldn't believe her technique, nor the softness of the surroundings. Caves, birdsong, and sunlight filtering through the leaves. Felt like living inside a dream. That afternoon I visited Baidin Pagoda. Endless stone steps, Buddha statues shrouded in mist, and the toll of temple bells brought peace to my heart. A young monk paused to greet me, pointing to the sky and saying, "A calm heart brings a clear sky." I didn't fully understand, but I felt it deeply. I saved the final part of my northern journey for Sapa, a place I had dreamt of after seeing pictures of golden terraces in harvest season. An overnight train brought me to Lao Kai, then a bus up winding mountain roads to Sapa. The cold air, lingering mist, and the scent of pine made me feel as though I was stepping into another world. I chose to stay at a homestay in Tavan village, surrounded by mountains and the soothing sound of a stream. The host family, of the Hmong ethnic group, welcomed me with smiles and a warm cup of corn wine. I joined them for dinner. Grilled fish, forest vegetables, and sticky rice. Their daughter, a little girl named Me, taught me to count in Hmong and how to braid ropes from dry grass. The next morning, I trekked with Mia's father through mountain trails and local villages. We barely spoke, but he showed me how to read animal tracks and predict the weather by watching the clouds. At one point he stopped, gazed into the distance and said, "The clouds are quiet today." "That's good." He nodded. In that moment I wasn't a foreigner anymore, just a human being in harmony with nature. Northern Vietnam etched itself into my memory not merely for its stunning landscapes, though they were indescribably beautiful, but for the deep sense of connection. An elderly woman in Hanoi taught me how to brew Thanh Nguyen tea. A motorbike driver in Ninh Binh refused to take payment, saying, "You smile just like my grandson." One night in Sapa, I lay under the stars thinking, maybe life only needs to be this simple. As I boarded the flight leaving Hanoi, I carried not just photographs or souvenirs, but a quiet transformation within. I came to Vietnam as a traveler, but I left as someone who had discovered a second home in the warmth of its people and the stillness of its landscapes. I returned to my homeland on a quiet autumn afternoon. The plane landed at the international airport under pale sunlight, the air crisp but strangely silent. The familiar city welcomed me with its usual hustle, the sound of honking horns and hurried footsteps, things I once knew so well but now felt distant. My old backpack didn't just carry clothes or small souvenirs. It was filled with memories. A packet of Thanh Nguyen tea, a small hand-woven scarf from Sapa, a few photos hurriedly printed at a shop in Hoi An. But the most important things I brought home weren't tangible. They were feelings. I realized that I had changed. Not all at once, but little by little. In the way I listened. In the way I noticed the little things in everyday life. I no longer grew irritated waiting at a long red light. I no longer rushed past the homeless without looking them in the eyes. I had learned patience, and more than anything I had learned to slow down. I still remember that morning in Hoi and when I sat with the homestay owner, sipping coffee on the veranda. He told me about a son who had left home and hadn't been heard from since. His eyes were sad yet gentle. When I asked why he still smiled, he simply said, "To remember is to love." That sentence has haunted me ever since. In Vietnam, I didn't just pass through places. I passed through souls. I didn't just witness beautiful landscapes. I saw human kindness. The soil-stained hands of farmers in Ninh Binh. The clear laughter of little me among the clouds in Sapa. The raspy voice of a motorbike taxi driver in Hanoi asking me if I'd ever been in love. Now, when someone asks me, "What's beautiful about Vietnam?" I smile. It's impossible to tell it all. It's the village roads shaded with bamboo. The cup of hot tea on a rainy afternoon. The question, "Have you eaten yet?" echoing every evening as I walk the streets of Hanoi's old quarter. Vietnam is not where I was born. But it's where I truly lived. It's where I learned to open my heart, to let the simplest things touch me deeply. I have left, but a part of my heart remains. Quietly but forever.